Welcome one, welcome all, and welcome to an honest review of 2014's The Babadook. There's going to be some spoilers ahead, so you have been warned. And Kofi, what is the plot of The Babadook?
It's about some woman, single mum, Amelia, and a weirdly troubled child, Sam, with massive behavioural problems. They find some book that brings a monster into the house, which is called, obviously, The Babadook. She doesn't believe him, but that makes the problem much worse. And the monster's like some bizarre Slender Man, Dr. Seuss, tall-ass weirdo. What was it like to have Dr. Slender Seuss on your screen? Was it scary to you guys, or was it funny?
Dr. Slender Seuss. Yeah.
Child in Black and Fake Seuss.
I fucking really liked this. Personally, I really did.
I really liked it as well, but it was just, it's not like scary, and it was weird. It was like an attempt at jump scaring, but it didn't work, but it also was really creepy.
Almost like playing on people's typical fears, like something dark in the corner of the room, or a face just coming at you very quickly and stuff like that.
I was more scared of Sammy.
Fucking right. What the fuck is he doing, the little prick?
I loved him. It starts with him having a nightmare, right? So his mum sits him down to read the book and trying to get him back to sleep by reading that, and he just turns around and says, "I'll kill the monster when he comes, I'll smash his head in." And then in the very next scene, he's like made a catapult, and to prove how powerful it is, he smashes one of the windows, and I immediately was like, I fucking like this kid. Straight up.
What level Minecrafter is this character? Like, how can he fucking craft catapults out his shed? Bloody hell.
And then he takes a fucking crossbow to school? What?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
They're reading, obviously, the book about the Babadook. Not being funny, though, if you were a parent, would you read that book to your child?
You wouldn't fucking continue?
It was just weird, like the ghostly figure hiding behind the door, and then it was in the cupboard and hanging off the ceiling waiting to kill the kid. You would never read that to a child, would you? Then old Pappy Duke starts to haunt her and come after her progressively. Duke. Yeah, but the way he's like portrayed is almost like he has been torn straight out the book, isn't it? And like the way he moves is very almost like paper-like.
It's like jittery.
Yeah, it's like jolting with each movement, isn't it? And the noises are very like scratching or white noise, quite like demonic. So I quite like that. Yeah. I quite like that about it.
I mean, the book, like the illustrations and stuff, I thought was excellent. Like a really cool idea for like the film's concept. And then like Babadook as well, like the anagram of Babadook is a bad book. So obviously it's a bad book in the film. And then in Hebrew it means he is coming for sure. So it's like, so it's got like little meanings.
Give me a bit of a shiver, that, to be honest.
That's quality.
But even if you didn't know that, like Babadook sounds like a kid's book. It sounds like very Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I thought it sounds like. I thought it was like Babadook. Do, push pineapples, shake the tree. Babadook, do, push pineapples, grind coffee. Every time they said it, that's all I could fucking hear. And if you got a problem with it, subscribe.
Slick. You slid that one in like the Babadook through a door frame. Well done. Sammy, I remember when this film first came out, everyone would not shut up about how he was the most annoying kid they'd ever seen in a film.
It's between him and fucking Dakota Fanning in War of the Worlds.
Oh, Jesus, Kofi, you've won the War of the Worlds there. But you can tell, like, even as a character, he's designed to be like that because obviously he's on the spectrum or he's got like some kind of ADHD because he's got like loads of issues with school and they think he needs to be like monitored one-on-one. But a whole thing with Amelia's character as well is she's like struggling to raise him because she's now like widowed, and because of Sammy's condition it makes it so much harder for her to get through her daily life, and that like is what ultimately gets her like so stressed out and bogged down. And when she's got like the Babadook like attached to her in the film, the more the film goes on she just looks so shattered. It looks like she's not slept in a week, and the way she acts is just like she's burnt out. And it was just a really good like acting job from her on this part, I think, and I believed that she was just fucking sick of her son.
I disagree. I saw this presented in a different way.
Okay.
I thought the movie almost was presenting like a possession type plot, but then to me it became more clear that the mother was descending into madness and some kind of split personality. It kind of was like a build-up of this woman's sadness, right? And almost like a spiral into depression and mental illness, and that started obviously with the death of her husband. And then she's obviously struggling to cope with raising her son, who's quite a demanding character, and even how he shows affection to her is quite overburdening. And she's obviously trying to deal with her own like grief, and that begins to like manifest itself in resentment for her own child. And he is presented as unlikable to begin with, but she starts to really take a disliking to him after reading the book, and she slowly starts to envision a monster kind of in her, I guess, day-to-day life to deal with that emotional trauma that she was dealing with, and somehow it skews the neglect and the abuse that she's putting her son through. And so in turn, I think like Sam was almost like trying to protect himself and his abusive mother, like any child would, right? And you see towards the end of the film, when she's having one of her mad episodes, he strokes her face to bring her out of it. I kind of saw it as actually quite heartbreaking for the kid in the film, because there's obviously kids out there that legitimately have to deal with that kind of thing. And in the sense, to me, this film was like less of a horror and more of like a really well pieced together film showing the gradual descent into mental health issues. At the end, she faces off with, I guess you could describe it as her like inner demon, and she kind of shows it that it can't control her anymore, and at that point it backs off and it loses its power, losing the battle to her sanity, and it locks itself away with all of the husband's belongings, which is where that trauma itself was coming from. And then immediately they return to normality again, with the kid having a birthday party, even though the birthday's the anniversary of the husband's death. She then goes down into the basement to feed the Babadook a bowl of worms, and it goes to attack her, and she soothes it before it goes back into the corner quietly. So, and I know I've been talking a long time, but for me that was her basically like showing how it will always be a part of her, but she's learnt to suppress it and keep it at bay, even though it's a challenge and it still could very easily overcome her if she let it.
It's her problem to deal with.
Yeah, so I kind of saw this more of like a portrayal of like mental health.
I've just thought like a few things kind of connect. She's like a failed writer, isn't she? And she used to write children's books. And when she went to the police station to try and tell them about the book, she had like black on her hands, and it looked like she'd drawn it herself.
Ooh, that's a great point. And totally go along with that. It's like less of a monster film and more that the monster in the film is like a symbol or like a manifestation of the depression or the grief of, you know, losing her husband. You can kind of take the house as a bit of a symbol as well, because in the film, not only is the Babadook a black and white book, but the colour scheme of Amelia's house is all blacks, light and dark greys. It's all that kind of colour scheme. There's no colour in the house. So she lives in an environment that's really colourless, and it kind of reflects her personality and mood. But not only that, it reflects the colours of the book. Then at the end as well, when, you know, the Babadook goes down into the basement, you could see it as kind of like a metaphor of the phrase like, I'm going to put all my problems in the closet, that kind of thing. Like it's a thing that you've like taken out of your head and you've kind of locked it away. It's almost like a physical realization of that. It's like, I've put this monster inside me in the basement. It's still in my house. It's still in the back of my head, but it's suppressed.
Yes.
And every now and again I acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be a part of me. I mean, they say in the book, once you get the Babadook, there's no getting rid of it.
Yes.
So it's kind of like having to contend with a permanent thing that will always be a part of you. It's how you address it.
And I guess it also depends on like, you know, who you are as a person probably depends on like how you interpret or watch this kind of film, right? Like mental health is something like quite close to my heart and something that like, you know, runs in my family and things like that. So like I'm probably more sensitive to things that like could be interpreted.
Yeah, I think it was an enjoyable film. I didn't see any part of it about what you guys have been talking about until you've started to talk about it. But it was still good as just a not typical. It was quite different to normal horror movies. It was a good psychological thriller, I think.
It didn't rely on jump scares. It wasn't about teenagers who were out shagging late at night before some crap murderer comes and scares them before picking them off one by one. It wasn't just some gore fest with no real substance. I'm probably going to ruin the podcast for saying this, but I liked it.
Absolutely one of my favourite films we've watched for the podcast. I think it's really, really well acted, really well put together, and means a hell of a lot more than a lot of people probably take for granted, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely.
So there we go. That was our very honest and thought-provoking review of The Babadook. Thank you very much for checking this one out. The channel's been doing great lately as well. Been getting loads of subscribers and plenty more views, which has been really great for our analytics, getting more people to learn about Unleash the Ghouls. So if you are watching this and you wouldn't mind subscribing if you already haven't, that would do wonders for us and we'd be really, really thankful. Join us next Friday for another episode of Friday Fright Time. And for now, cheers everyone. Thank you very much. See you next time.